All right, let's see. I had to switch it up a little bit. Okay, we are live.
And let me ask, would you like for me to repeat the Ethics Act statement?
Yeah, I would, John, if that'd be good.
Okay. First of all, let me welcome everyone to this remote meeting of the Legislative Committee. I appreciate your participation and your presence. For those of you who are also showing video as well as audio, it's good to see your faces. And for those on audio, we appreciate your participation as well. The Ethics Act statement will be read at this time. It is the duty of committee members to avoid conflicts of interest and appearances of conflicts of interest in performing the duties as a member of the Legislative Committee and North Carolina State Bar. Any member of the committee who is aware of any personal conflicts or appearances thereof with respect to the matters before this committee should disclose those at the meeting. And before we begin, is there anyone who is currently aware of any such conflict or the appearance of a conflict? Hearing none, we'll move to the agenda. And the first item is the approval of the January 2020, January 22, 2020 minutes of the Legislative Committee. And
Nick Fountain, I move approval.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay. And anyone opposed, please say no or indicate that in your chat response box. And Peter, at this time, we'll move into a recap of the 2020 legislative session.
Okay, great. I will, I'm going to share my screen here at the moment, just so everybody can look at these different bills that I'll go through one at a time. The legislative session ended last week with intent to come back again in a couple of weeks to tidy up some matters and then come back again in September to adjourn for good. For all intents and purposes, it looks like most of the matters were taken care of in the scramble at the end of the week last week. So I'll just go down the list of the bills that we were taking a look at. The first was our dues bill. And so since we met in January, we didn't meet in April, but since the January meeting, we haven't had much movement on the dues bill. In March, before the state really shut down, Colin and Matt Smith and I went to the legislature and met with Senator Berger and his staff about the dues bill. It was a productive meeting in that he gave us the time to explain our bill, asked appropriate questions of the bill, and we had a productive meeting. I don't think that anybody left the meeting with a belief that the bill was about to move anytime soon, especially since the COVID shutdown was very imminent at the time. Since the economic strain that was put on the state from the pandemic, it's very unlikely that a bill to increase fees is going to see any movement, at least until after the election. We really didn't press it very hard in this last scramble of the short session because there was little to no chance that there'd be any movement when every other bill was decreasing fees or allowing agencies to waive fees. We certainly didn't see a path to getting this bill passed. So it has not made any movement since January, officially still sitting in the Senate Rules Committee. I'm happy to answer any questions you have on the dues bill. We can kind of do that one at a time if you'd like. I want to thank Matt Smith for coming down. It was quite a effort to come down for that meeting, and really helpful to have him there since he's from Senator Berger's district and was able to open up a good line of communication for the three of us to have that chat. The next bill on our list was Senate Bill 217, and I have some good news that it passed. But the bad news is that they gutted the language from our bill and passed a different bill using Senate Bill 217. That was the renumbering of prosecutorial districts, and it popped up last week as a conference report, and I had a very quick glimmer of hope, but it was very quickly evident that they used that conference committee bill to put in a different language as it relates to unemployment benefits. And so that's going to have to go back to the drawing board and start over again. Again, probably not till after the election, when there'll be some ability to renumber districts without affecting filings and campaigns and all of that. So that bill is kind of DOA at the moment. The next bill was a bill that popped up this spring to modernize the debt settlement prohibitions. And what we were involved with was the definition of, or the language related to the exception for a lawyer, a North Carolina lawyer, to be performing acts, debt settlement for their clients. And this was a bill that we supported and was drafted with the Department of Justice and the Justice Center and the bankers, really good group of stakeholders that drafted this bill. It would tie up a perceived loophole that allowed companies from out-of-state debt adjusters to hire or contract with North Carolina lawyers in kind of name only to conduct debt adjusting in North Carolina. The language was, I think, would have really improved things. This bill passed unanimously out of the House and went to the Senate, where it received a unanimous favorable report in 3 different committees. The debt settlement companies, debt adjusting companies from out of state hired 12 to 16 lobbyists who came in. This was noted in the Rules Committee and really pressured the Senate. And the bill was ultimately re-referred to a different committee and kind of sat there and died at the end of the session. It really seemed like it had full support, but something caught it last week and it ran out of steam, and it's unfortunate. But we spoke in favor of the bill at the legislature. Josh Walthall went and spoke about debt adjusting and how this bill would help clean up a loophole, and he was extremely well received. Really did a great job. The bill made a favorable report everywhere it was heard. It received a unanimous favorable report and still did not make it through the session. This was a bill from last year that encouraged the CLE board to create an exemption for NCGA employees, for the lawyers who work for the General Assembly to be exempt from CLE. It passed out of the House, but never was heard or brought up in the Senate. So that has gone anywhere. Senate Bill 560 was the bill about the disciplinary hearing commission and giving that power back to the state bar to regulate judges. That bill was gutted and passed with different language in it, but it was not the bill. The original bill that we were so concerned with didn't pass. Some language from that original bill did pass, mostly just clarifying what the DHC's jurisdiction is, but it did not, the language affecting the state bar or giving any additional responsibility to the state bar was taken out and didn't pass in the legislature. The next bill we were concerned with during the long session was the bill to allow S Corp to have pro se representation. Again, that bill passed, but it was not the language that we were involved with. It was gutted and used for a different bill as allowing related to selling alcohol for public universities and insurance. So it was gutted and passed, but it wasn't the bill that we were concerned with. So there were three or four different pieces of language related to COVID relief and changes during the state of emergency that we were involved with. The first is emergency video notarization, allowed video notaries in the time during state of emergency, and laid out the requirements for it. We took a look at it for the legislature and as it relates to lawyers, and helped with the language to make sure that it was appropriate. But this did pass in the big COVID relief bill. And actually this, I think I need to go back and look, but I think they're extending the time that these are enacted. It was to expire in August, but I believe last week they passed a bill that extends video notarization and the next item I'm going to talk about, recording, if a Register of Deeds office is closed, they extended those into March. So this bill did pass. The next bill, or the next part of the COVID relief bill, was we worked with the legislature and the administrative office of the courts to allow new attorneys to be sworn in remotely. Considering the courts may be closed after this July bar exam still, and into the fall, might be harder for these new lawyers to get sworn in. They're permitted to be sworn in remotely, and that expires in December. And if we need to extend it based off of any sort of delays, then we can work to get that extended into the fall or into the spring. But it expires December 1st to allow remote swearing in. And that's actually has happened a few times already. I've seen videos and pictures of new lawyers being sworn in remotely by the judges in their area over WebEx or Zoom. The final item, the next item to talk about is allowing disbursement of funds prior to recordation of the deed if a Register of Deeds office is closed and electronic filing is not available. As far as I know, that this actually hasn't had to be used yet, but this would allow the disbursement of funds once they're good funds to be dispersed out, even if the deed hasn't been recorded. So we worked pretty hard on this because there was actually some language that at one point would have allowed a lawyer to disperse funds even if they have not yet been collected, which I think was going to be trouble. We were very concerned about having good funds before you disperse, so you're not dispersing another client's money in a matter. So we got that language cleared up. And we worked with the legislature and the Bar Association and other entities to make sure that we were all comfortable with this change to the Good Fund Settlement Act if a Register of Deeds office is closed and unable to accept electronic filing. So there's electronic recording. So some of the bigger jurisdictions won't have to worry about this because they have the ability to do e-recording. But if there was a jurisdiction in North Carolina that only did paper filing, and that Register of Deeds office was closed because of the emergency, this would allow them to make that disbursement even if the funds were, or even if the deed was not fully recorded. This has been extended to March, I believe, as of last week too. The last item that I just wanted to point out was the ability to have remote public meetings and remote meetings of public bodies, and it lays out how this needs to happen and how the public needs to be able to view it, how to do voting, how to keep the meetings as public records. just point this out for our purposes, obviously here at the Bar Council, but also if you start to receive questions from your district bars about having their district bar meetings and votes remotely, which I think is going to start happening. I think we've already started to have some of these questions, whether it's a district court vacancy election or a counselor election or the annual meeting in the fall to elect officers. We're going to need to work with the district bars so they're comfortable with these rules that they can hold these remote meetings correctly, and if they feel that they can't have the live meeting of your district bar. So this is important, and we're happy to help your districts. If you have these instances pop up, we'll walk you through them and help guide you into having those remote meetings. But they are permitted. Whatever your rules said about having to meet in person, this can supersede it and allow you to have remote meetings. Don, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and bring it back for any discussion. I got to find it though. I've lost it. There we go. Okay.
Very good. Well, we're back. Is there any discussion of any of these bills that, or any questions of Peter that he has not covered in his summary? Or is there any other, are there any other concerns or items that need to be discussed by our committee this morning?
One question, Peter, our dues bill, it's not dead because they didn't adjourn, is it? Or
right,
is it?
It's not dead yet. When they adjourn in September, they'll be adjourning sine die, which will kill the bill, and we would have to reintroduce it in the next long session.
Start over. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Any other questions or discussion? Peter, anything else?
I think we ought to thank Peter for staying with it all the way through.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, I thought we had some good momentum this year that seems to have hit some walls that we'll have to start again. I think that's just how this all works. I was a little saddened about the debt adjusting bill because it seemed to have such full support, and we felt like we were going to be on the winning side for once, and then it kind of just came to a screeching halt at the end. So we're trying to find some victories here next session. Feel like we had a rough run here for a little while.
Very good. Is there anything else come before our committee? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move.
Okay. And all in favor, please signify by raising your hands. Okay. All right. We will we'll adjourn the meeting, and thank you again for your participation. Look forward to seeing many of you at other committee meetings. Have a good day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye now.